Skype that I just absolutely fucking detest. However, I do like that feature. We have got a great guest with us today. She joins us live here on our big broadcast. And Miriam, you're an alternative medicine expert. At least that's
functional medicine.
Okay.
Let me get my functional medicine is a little bit different. I'm just gonna adjust my
Not a problem. Not a problem. We have a great guest with us today. She joins us live here on our broadcast, and just amazing guests we've had today here on our program, and everyone is locked down for this COVID-19. So we have been able to catch people at home and be able to do some pretty cool interviews, and one of those is with us today. So you say functional medicine.
functional medicine.
Explain that to the audience here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yes.
So functional medicine is, in my opinion, the future.
Okay.
And it looks at you as an individual. And so if you were my client, I would take a very thorough intake form and look at things that include antecedents, which is basically characteristics even prior to your birth. So looking at your parents' health, looking at if you were vaginally born, looking at if you were breastfed, whether you grew up taking antibiotics, exposures. So it really, we can get to the root. And in this day, in this era of, coronavirus, which is arguably a great psyop of all time, that
yes, you hit that on the head.
We really need to look at the details because the devil is there. And a lot of deaths are being classified as COVID-19. And if we look from a functional medicine point of view, the test itself is not solid. So you have to look at a whole bunch of factors, what they were given, their prior comorbidities. Today, 1 in every 2 people has a chronic illness. 54% of our children are sick. We can argue that Big Pharma has paved the way to what is now a perfect cytokine storm that we're seeing.
So, Miriam, explain to me what you think is going on with this, because, for instance, my mother had this COVID-19 thing in November.
Okay.
One of my photographers in the state of New Jersey had it in October. I had it in February, and I had influenza with it, and that's what they said I had. They said, "Oh, it's influenza." Except the doctor that came back in that was checking me over was like, I wouldn't exactly say it's just influenza. And so give me your take on this whole thing, because you're the expert.
Well, there is. I've been covering it since the end of January, and have gone through different phases and been looking at it from all angles, focusing on what I've always been focusing on for the past 12 years, which is big pharma corruption. One, there's many strains of coronavirus. You can argue that it was patented back in 2015. You can argue that it was man-made or messed with.
Yes.
Regardless what you stated about it being an influenza. One, let's consider that this hit in America during pretty much the peak of the influenza season.
Yes.
So there's a kind of a catch-all where it's called influenza-like illnesses, ELI. And so a lot of people can end up in that net. And I also was saying, I think this has been here longer than we have been reporting on, and it's really gnarly. And if you have some respiratory issues or some even autoimmune conditions, or depending, then you might be more susceptible if you've had pneumonia before. But there's a lot of focus on the real agenda, in my opinion, by the vaccine deep state, which is to give us a digital certificate. And I mean, this is a worst case scenario, and to track us all. And now looking back at a lot of the sci-fi movies, because I love sci-fi, it seems that there's been a lot of predictive programming, and that this has been in motion, and there's been, other runs, arguably many runs, and this is not a drill.
Do you think it's going to come to the point where you have to get this vaccine, you have to get this thing, or otherwise, you can't travel on a plane, you can't come into this state? Do you think that's what's coming?
I think that's definitely one of the agendas. I mean, I was saying that when I covered Zika, and Zika was like how many years ago? And what was Zika really all about? Was to put out more genetically modified mosquitoes, some of them that don't terminate, that actually in close proximity of antibiotics for whatever reason are bolstered. And then you have like these mutant mosquitoes mating with regular mosquitoes. Then you had the justification of creating a vaccine, which now exists, which Dr. Fauci it was part of. And then you had the justification of spraying more poisons. So there were trucks in Manhattan being spraying stuff, and the people in, let's say, Dade County literally had to go to the city council and say, please don't spray us. Yeah. So is it going to get to that? I mean, there's an alternative narrative that is also occurring in regards to the boats, or what's really happening economically, and that this is a reset. But I definitely, Bill Gates and friends want to vaccinate us, and it looks like we're heading towards China light. And I've been covering this with the Google whistleblower, Zach Voorhees, and he's been looking at, more of what maybe the white hats or the patriots hopefully are intending. I don't think that's necessarily a narrative that you can bank on. It's a nice narrative, but this is really a time to kind of go within and hopefully wake the F up.
Well, and this is something that a lot of folks, I think in the very beginning, folks were like, well, we'll do this lockdown thing for a couple weeks, and then I think they realized, we're doing this for a month? We're doing this for 2 months?
And what is that? That's the overtone window.
Yeah.
That's normalizing pathology, slowly getting you ready for a new, this is a global 911.
Yeah. Well.
And, quote, we're all in it together. Hopefully. Well, it's also been interesting. I've been watching the congressional hearings, and I call them like, today's episode of As the World Churns. And you can really, well, I say that also because I learned that the CDC has have a huge budget for Hollywood. They've paid in the past their employees to literally watch soap operas. So this is
holy smokes.
This is like a soap opera, and you can really glean a lot of truth if you kind of put what they're saying through double speak translator. Then you can garner what's on the horizon, like ad nauseum. They're telling us what they're planning, I think.
With this whole thing, I know that a lot of folks have been reaching out for various remedies to get rid of this. Some of the things that are in seltzer water, people are encouraging people to take zinc, vitamin C.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about this.
Yeah, so it's ironic that from my perspective, Google impacted our traffic. My startup, my wellness magazine and marketplace called Honey Colony.
Yes.
Because if you do a Google search, unless we exist and you put honeycolony.com, we won't come up. And we were ranking, as a startup, getting 500,000 unique visitors a month is kudos to us, and a lot of hard work with our SEO and creating content that was arguably in the future. So the remedies that are being offered for coronavirus are remedies I've been taking for almost a decade, things that I've been talking about. So zinc, this flu version, this coronavirus depletes you of zinc. It robs you of zinc in the cells. So replenishing with zinc. I mean, lysine, silver. Silver is a natural antibiotic that precedes what's the mold? The mold.
Oh yeah, I know what you're.
Penicillin.
Yes.
It precedes penicillin, and the aristocrats used to use silver. Vitamin C, either if you can be lucky enough to get it in an IV, so in smaller quantities, it's an antioxidant. And if you're really dealing with a virus, which I've dealt with viruses before, we have a virome. This is not like our first year at the rodeo. Like, we have a virome. We're more bacteria and viruses than human cells. And so the real virus is, I think, one of fear. And that is extremely contagious. That has reached even the jungles of Costa Rica, which is where I am.
Now, Miriam, tell us about Honey Colony, because you brought it up a little bit there, and I wanted to cover this. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Okay, I just want to stress the importance of not succumbing to fear.
Yes. And
the impact of fear literally on the immune system. Stress does kill, and
yes,
the importance of keeping your immune system strong, your thoughts to keep them positive. And with that said, created Honey Colony after directing Vanishing of the Bees, and someone, he was my boyfriend at the time, a business partner, invested money in creating Health and Wellness magazine and marketplace, and then we soon branded our own products. And from 2015 to 2016, we went from $200,000 in sales to $1 million, which is also very impressive. And we were finally gonna, as a startup, as an entrepreneur, have all our hard work pay off. And then I experienced techno-fascism in 2016. And that is also when things changed over at Google, and things started to simmer for the worse, because there's no more organic searches really not in the health and wellness field. I mean, as of late, in the past few weeks, I suspect because Trump forged this deal to create this database that's going to track us all, thanks to Google, tell you if there's someone sneezing like a mile away, you better be careful. And they're criminalizing the cough and a fever and tracking you. Anyway, so Honey Colony started selling CBD oil in 2016. And, Big Pharma didn't like that. And I tell people that I share bees and bud in common with Bayer Crop Science, because Bayer is the main company partnered with GW Pharma that created the first ever synthetic faux CBD oil. And so conveniently, I'm just segueing a little, but conveniently, CBD, which the government patented in I believe the 90s or 2003 as an antioxidant and antioxidant and protective agent, then went ahead and put it as a Schedule 1. And then when the FDA got approval, GW, they conveniently took it off. So it's been very political, and many entrepreneurs, certainly not just myself, started getting censored and shut down.
Talk to us a little bit about that, because you've had to deal with a heck of a lot.
Yeah, I have. I sure have. And because I'm a phoenix and I don't give up, I've been able to get out of a morass of bullshit.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. I hope it can
No,
swear.
no. You're good. No. You're passionate. Keep going.
So basically, people who started selling CBD oil got shut down. And we were one of the first in 2016, so really on the front lines to allow Martha Stewart and Kim Kardashians of the world to sell CBD without a problem. But the people who are visionaries on the front lines, like imagine waking up and like, oh, PayPal just has just held on to $36,000 of our money. How does a small business operate with that? And so we systematically got shut down by all the mainstream processors. And then we had to find solutions that were offshore. And then we had some offshore crooks literally rob us. One like T1, which is like well known in the CBD world, where they route their money through the UK.
Oh, really?
And at the time I wasn't in charge of operations, I was asked to leave. So I was happy to leave because I'm a creative and a producer and a writer, and so that's not where I wanted to be in the running of the business.
Yes.
But then a lot of bad decisions were made, and we had to take some pretty crazy loans that were predatory that Bloomberg did a series on. It was a racket that involved a New York marshal. In any case, finally, now we have a solid processor, and I never stopped selling CBD. And lots of people were like, why don't you just stop selling CBD? Why? It's perfectly legal, and I'm actually helping people.
Yes.
Everybody, like from people who have PTSD to people who have bladder cancer, who have insomnia, have remarked on our CBD, because also now that everyone and their mother is making CBD, there's a whole host of characteristics to look for. Like, if they put CBD in beer or in coffee, there's something called hepatic first pass, and it degrades 80 to 90% by the time it gets to the liver. So that's just marketing bullshit. So we were making an organic liposomal, and we weathered it out. I wrote an extensive piece on it, but by that time, I've kind of been, I'm not really welcomed by the mainstream media. And I used to write for The Hollywood Reporter and LA Magazine and Penthouse and Black Book and Maxim and tons of magazines. And now the stuff I write about, which is truth, is not really welcomed by the prostitutes.
I love that term, by the way, the prostitutes.
I do too.
We have a gentleman that's on our Tuesday radio program, IQ Al Rizzoli, and he started using prostitutes a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, well, this is really cool. And now that you're using it too, and it's like, okay, well, it's a term that's out there now, and everyone's using it. That's awesome.
Yes.
So
yeah, and sorry, just was saying.
No, go ahead.
Fake news is old news, as I heard Mike Cernovich say in his documentary Hoaxed. He's an independent journalist.
Yes.
And what the difference really is social media to really, we are the news now. Yes. So I just happen to be a real journalist, but there's tons of brilliant people that are journalists today because they're good researchers, and more so they know how to connect the dots and are waking up. So I would hope the silver lining with coronavirus is that people are going to hopefully go within and realize that they need to rely on themselves and hopefully wake up.
Well, and I've started to notice there are so many people that in the very beginning, they did what they needed to do, and now they're starting to be folks. The other day, Dana White, who is the head of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he said, here's the deal. If I'm going to get bit by something, we're all going to go someday. And he goes, if I'm supposed to get bit by coronavirus and that's the end of it, then that's the end of it. And he kept talking about how it seems like people are now prisoners of their own homes.
Absolutely. We're all on voluntary house arrest.
Yes.
And it's under the guise, there's a lot of shaming because if there is a virus, because there is a virus and there's been viruses,
Yes.
then, the fact that, and I've said this before, like how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
40. I am officially 40
40.
this year.
Have you learned yet how to wash your hands, or did you need the fucking coronavirus to teach you?
I needed the reality show president to come out and tell me. See, this is the thing. I was having this conversation with a local restaurant owner at lunch today. She just can't imagine that we live in a time where you're told to wash your hands, and if you're sick, don't leave your house. Whenever I get sick, I stay in. And I've been doing that forever. Whether it's a cold, the flu, whatever, I don't leave the house. And people find that so strange. It's like, well, I'm sick. I'm not going anywhere.
Add that there are some people who live paycheck to paycheck
that too
that can't afford to take,
yes.
And so then there's going to be lying. But I mean, the last time I got the flu, which must have been 4 years now, and people wanted me to take the Z-Pak, which is a broad spectrum antibiotic, which I personally think is not. I think you should take a culture and ask the person what their history of antibiotics is.
Yes.
Again, from a functional point of view. So I was like, F the Z-Pak. I took, sure, it took longer. And people were like, are you a Jehovah's Witness? You don't want to go? I'm like, I don't need that. I have my immune system. But of course, I was too sick. I mean, I work from home, so I still got to my desk and work because I'm a workaholic and have problems relaxing. But the point is, when you're sick, you don't really want to go and be outside. But let's just remark that some people don't have that luxury, and the economic devastation, just like President said, that what's happening with the economy and all the job losses, and that's also going to cause deaths. Let's also point out that with our reliance of made in China, where do we think people, like, you can go to the FDA page and look and see from A to Z, morphine included, all the shortages of medications, because I don't know where they're coming from now or if they're coming. Yeah. So let's also consider that there are going to be lots of deaths. This is a little bit of a culling, and the older population is more at risk, but there's a lot of reasons that people die every day, folks.
Well,
death is part of life. Yeah. Just because you slap coronavirus, in the UK they passed the law to bypass pretty much the protocols regarding death. So you no longer need, for instance, 2 people to sign off. So in reality, people will be classified as coronavirus, but you don't really know. What if they were given something experimental that didn't jive with their own chemistry, or they had diabetes or cancer? Like, there was a reporter a couple of days ago that they highlighted. She was a cancer survivor. Who the hell knows what her health was like?
Yes.
So I think they're going to get the, for lack of a better word, the low-hanging fruit. Yes. And then as they install their surveillance network, which was already in place, they were already canvassing with their I'm talking about the CDC and the HHS. They had a Vaccinate with Confidence program where they were already identifying.
That just sounds dangerous as shit.
So Orwellian, so fucked up.
Vaccinate with confidence.
Yeah, vaccinate with confidence. Wow. And then they also created, and I did a parody on that's my pinned tweet, one of 2 parodies, about people who are suffering from vaccine hesitancy.
Wow.
And so I'm pretty much reporting on Twitter. Like even though I'm arguably still shadow banned, it's gotten a lot better because I have a tribe now of medical freedom fighters. But certainly, I'm reporting there because this is happening in real time. Because I tried to even publish a story on my site, and even every time I go to edit it, someone else wrote it. I have to change the whole thing because this is arguably, as a journalist, the biggest story of our time.
This is just as Alex Jones likes to say, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Good Lord. We're kind of up against the clock here. We've got a couple more minutes with you. This has been fantastic, by the way. I have learned
Thank you
so much. You have been fantastic. We're going to have to do this again at some stage of the game. Before I let you go, how do people support you and websites, social media? Get everything out there so people can find you.
Okay, I work for tweets. I have to resuscitate my Patreon page. Certainly, please, I don't know if you're going to put any notes, but Mariam Hinane on Twitter and on YouTube. I am pretty much in the jungle. Just like to say that the same thing is happening all the way in the jungle, right? So there is lockdown. Yeah. Of course, high up in the hills, in the mountains, it's different. So please follow me on Twitter and on YouTube. It's YouTube. It's Mariam Hinane B Lady, which is one of my nicknames, B Lady. And just wish people to be positive and to see, it's not what happens to you, but what you do with what happens to you.
Yes.
So I'm gonna make a really killer lemonade. And watch this.
That's awesome.
From the jungle, because it's no accident.
That's pretty much what we have to do. You are fantastic. You have been information overload today. I thank you for this.
I thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I definitely will be in touch. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day, my friend.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. There she goes.
Bye.
The fantastic Mariam. And if you want to get more information, we'll have notes and everything up on our website, JiggyJaguar.com. We are going to take a break, and when we come back,